Kingdom Come Deliverance has been around for a few years now, but with the release of its sequel just around the corner, I thought I'd dive back into it. While plenty of guides for the game already exist, many are either a loose assortment of tips and tricks or focus on exploits or grinding your way through KCD's realistic medieval setting. So instead of adding another top 10 video to the pile or telling you that you should spend the first 2 hours of the game just picking herbs or punching cows, we'll dive in a bit deeper for an extensive walkthrough of the game's first few hours, some important info on what to do and perhaps not to do, as well as some tips and tricks for beginners, advanced and even hardcore mode players alike, all condensed into one video. Hey there, my name is Pete, and today we complete an extensive getting started guide for Kingdom Come Deliverance. Instead of throwing a bunch of random tips and tricks at you, this guide is designed to walk you through the first few hours of the game, explaining what to do and what to avoid to make your experience as smooth and rewarding as possible. This video is also tailored specifically for hardcore mode players. In fact, all footage was recorded in hardcore mode with all negative perks enabled, although everything here applies just as well to regular difficulty. If you're aiming for achievements like the infamous "'Tis but a Scratch" or working towards a completionist run, this guide will also help you get started on the right path, as I will make sure to present you with options that keep all achievements in mind. One last note before we dive in: I'll try to keep spoilers to a minimum, but this is a story-driven RPG, so discussing early quests and mechanics means we will touch on some story spoilers. However, if you have found your way here, chances are that you're already familiar with the game's major plot points, at least those from the first few hours. And with all of that out of the way, let's jump into it and begin. The game begins in the village of Skalitz, Henry's home and your tutorial, but it's packed with small opportunities to set yourself up for success in the hours to come. So let's break it all down step by step to ensure you leave this area with a solid foundation for the challenges ahead. First of all, when speaking with your mother in your very first conversation, make sure to choose the speech options twice. Speech is one of the hardest skills to level in the game, so gaining early experience here is crucial.
Nothing much. Me and the lads were just having a chat in the tavern.
This also gets you to main level 2, allowing you to select the ascetic perk to slow down your hunger meter, a handy bonus especially in hardcore mode, and even more so if you've got the negative tapeworm perk active, which increases your hunger rate. While food is generally not too difficult to come by, this perk allows you to carry a little less with you on your travels, definitely useful since early on Henry's carrying capacity is fairly low. And don't worry, you will eventually be able to redistribute your perk points and thus respec your character, so you are not forced to stick with this decision for the rest of the game. Now, once you've finished the conversation, loot the chest in your home to grab 3 Savior Schnapps. In hardcore mode, that's the only way you can save the game apart from sleeping or making an exit save. Everything else you can leave in there for now. Other hardcore mode limitations are displayed as soon as you exit the house, but before you do, grab and eat some food from the table and also eat from the pot inside to fill your hunger bar. A nourishment value below 50 means you're hungry and suffer stat penalties, so try to avoid that. As you exit, and especially if you've chosen the negative tapeworm perk, note the location of the outdoor pot as well. I'll explain the food and drink mechanics in a bit more detail later, they are not really all that important during this prologue. Up next, you'll want to spend a few moments picking nettles around your house and the nearby areas to raise your herbalism skill. You want to aim for 100 nettles to unlock the resistance perk for a permanent +2 bonus to vitality, the stat that governs your stamina and in turn allows you to sprint for longer and perform more consecutive actions in combat. Don't worry, you won't have to sit through 100 individual picking animations for this. By gaining herbalism levels, Henry also begins plucking several plants at a time, and you gain your first levels quickly, so this will only take a few minutes. You'll already find about 45 nettles near your house, some of them hidden between rocks, and a further 20 near the castle wall, just past your father's forge and to the right of the 2 castle guards. Of course, feel free to pick any other herbs along the way, but nettles are the important one for now, And again, we don't want to turn the game into flower picking simulator, even though you will earn an achievement for picking 10,000, yes, 10,000 herbs, so keep that in mind for a completionist playthrough. If you'd like to practice stealth early, there's a low-risk opportunity nearby. Sneak up behind the farmer here and choke him out to gain your first stealth XP. Be careful though not to kill him afterwards, at least if you're trying to unlock the merciful achievement. Equipping some of his gear can also boost your charisma slightly, and what's more, after some time has passed, he will simply get back up and continue working as if nothing happened, allowing you to potentially choke him out multiple times during the prologue. If you don't do this right in front of the guard, who sometimes patrols the area, or your mother, who occasionally uses this path, there won't be any consequences, but it is still a crime, and if committing one isn't your thing, or repeatedly choking him out feels a bit cheesy to you, then feel free to skip this step. Once you've finished your initial tasks, it's time to speak with your father. Importantly, if you rush to him right after exiting your house, you'll miss out on an important speech check, so spend a few minutes exploring and picking herbs first. This delay will trigger the dialogue choice when you finally approach him, giving you another chance to level up your speech skill. Your father gives you a set of tasks to complete, and while the castle guards are nearby, we want to make sure not to grab the cross guard from them just yet. Instead, we want to head down to Kunesh's house, where we will once again pick the speech check for some important skill XP, and to avoid a fight that you're probably not ready for, especially if you're playing on hardcore mode. Either way, after Kunesh blows you off, sneak into his house and approach the locked chest in the room to the right to unlock the option to speak about lockpicks with your friend Fritz, who can hand you a few of them for free later on.
A locked chest. I'll need a lockpick to get into that. Fritz might have one.
Additionally, there's about 10 nettles growing behind Kunesh's barn, the building right next to his house. Don't forget to pick those before moving on. Even in hardcore mode, this should already get you to Herbalism level 3. Up next, head to the market, but make sure to skip the charcoal burner for now, otherwise you won't be able to get those lockpicks. Proceed to the tavern, where picking nettles along the fence should quickly get you to the 100 you need for the resistance perk, which unlocks automatically. Enter the tavern grounds for a brief cutscene, during which you want to agree to help, but only if you get help with Kunesh in return.
Alright, I'll do it, but then you have to give me a hand with something.
Afterwards, before your friends run off, talk to Fritz again to get 4 lockpicks from him. At this point, I would recommend spending a few more minutes picking all remaining nettles in and around the tavern courtyard to raise your Herbalism skill to level 5. This allows you to learn the Flower Power perk, a +2 charisma bonus whenever you have at least 30 fragrant herbs in your inventory, and conveniently the nettles you just picked count as fragrant. From here on out, make sure you always have 30 fragrant herbs in your inventory to benefit from this bonus at all times. Now, this next part is technically optional, but I highly recommend it. Just make sure to drink a Savior Schnapps and drop a save beforehand. Since Fritz just handed you some lockpicks, it might be a good idea to start practicing with those, and the tavern has a few easy opportunities for you. Overall, Skalitz has a ton of locks to pick, but for the purposes of keeping this guide somewhat condensed, I'll just go over the really useful ones. Heading inside the tavern through the door on the right and up the stairs leads you into a room with 2 easy locked chests that make for ideal targets. Lockpicking can be a bit finicky, especially with a controller, in which case I highly recommend switching to the simplified lockpicking setting in your game settings. This is, however, not available for keyboard and mouse controls, which mechanically are already pretty close to the simplified version. Another tip, keeping the yellow circle in its correct position is easier the closer that position is to the center of the lock. If it's too far on the outside, you can simply back out of the lockpicking menu and try again to find that the correct spot has been reset, rinse and repeat until you find a sweet spot that you're happy with. Nonetheless, especially for first-time players, lockpicking can take some time getting used to, hence the save you hopefully dropped earlier to get in a bit of practice here. Now, the 2 chests in this room only contain a handful of Groschen, KCD's currency, but we're mostly doing this for the lockpicking skill XP anyway. Heading back down, there's a door beneath the stairs that you can go through when nobody's looking, close it behind you and pick the 2 easy locks of the chest and the door in the corridor. This gets you your first lockpicking level up, enough to also pick the easy chest in the room behind the door. The other one is very hard and can't be picked yet. This chest contains a ton of food, which I recommend just leaving here, as most traders won't buy stolen goods anyway. Those who do only give you a fraction of its worth, most of it will spoil quickly, and grabbing everything will put you over your carrying capacity, resulting in a noticeable reduction in movement speed. What you should take, however, are the 2 Savior Schnapps and anything with unlimited durability, like mead, wine or spirits, coincidentally also the items with the highest value. You should now already be close to or even over the carry weight limit, so if you plan to keep stealing, and there is at least one fantastic chest coming up that I highly recommend, you might want to nip back home to drop off anything you don't need in your chest there. Once again though, if you want to roleplay as a Henry who doesn't do crime, then of course feel free to skip all of this. For a completionist playthrough though, be aware that the game has an achievement for stealing items with a total combined value of 30,000 Groschen. You can also get this by pickpocketing or looting knocked out people, but lockpicking is arguably the easiest way. Once your business at the tavern is concluded, meet your friends at the Deutsch's house. You'll need to lure the Deutsch's wife away, do so, and then, instead of returning to your friends, head into the house through the door on the other side. Make sure that no one spots you as you pick the front door, followed by the door on the right, and finally the mother lode, the chest in the room behind it. This chest contains some valuable clothing items, including the red outer jacket, your very first piece of light armor. Don't equip it just yet though, we'll save this one for later. Instead, proceed through the other unlocked door and also loot the living room chest for some more Groschen. If you're not there already, this should get you to lockpicking level 2. And if it doesn't, maybe because the front door wasn't locked, that can happen, there's more opportunities coming up. Return to your friends, watch a brief cutscene, and in the following fist fight, try to land as many punches as possible to gain valuable strength XP. Simply spam the attack button, your opponents are fairly weak. Don't worry too much about getting hit either. Even on hardcore mode with all negative perks, the fight likely won't last long enough to knock you out. Afterwards, you can run away with your friends like the game tells you to, or run the other way and get caught for a little extra flavor dialogue from the catch bowl. Don't worry, you will not end up in jail.
So you don't mind that we...
Don't gape like a stuffed squirrel. Do you take me for a German, lover?
Just like you asked them to, your friends will now wait for you at Kunesh's house. Depending on how beat up you are, you might first want to stop by your home. Your mother will provide healing free of charge.
There you are, good as new. You ought to learn to do that yourself.
This also allows you to drop off the stolen goods from the Deutsch and practice some more lockpicking on the chest in your home storage room. Take note of the unique die in there, but don't make the mistake of actually using it. It is a very bad die to play with, so better to just leave it stored away for now. While you're in the area, you can now also talk to the castle guards, who at this point, after witnessing the Deutsch's antics in the tavern but before dealing with Kunesh, have 2 extra dialogue options in addition to the one about the sword's crossguard. That one you can now pick up, and finally proceed to Kunesh's house.
Magnificent! Shame I can't keep the sword for myself.
Meet your friends behind the barn and ask them to help you beat up Kunesh. Once again, in the resulting fist fight, try to land as many punches as possible. Kunesh will eventually yield and hand you the keys to his trunk, but we still want to open it using a lockpick for those sweet experience points. Crucially, after receiving this permission from Kunesh, the items inside will no longer be marked as stolen if you take them, and the same is also true for Kunesh's axe on the chopping block outside, so take that too. Should you need some patching up, talk to your mother again, and then proceed to the marketplace. You can now exchange Kunesh's items at the charcoal burner, where you only need to purchase 10 charcoal to fulfill your father's request. In this and all further trades, don't forget to always haggle, even if it only saves you a few coins, as doing so increases your speech skill. The exact XP value is a bit hard to pin down. Initially I noted a flat 5 XP gain for successfully negotiating a price, but I've also found that repeatedly haggling for the same type of item or continuously haggling with the same trader makes the value go down. So don't go overboard with this, although it should be noted that even a failed haggle still earns you XP. A successful haggle also increases your reputation in the town or village you haggle in, not so important in Skalitz, where as a local you are well liked from the beginning, but this can come into play later.
That's a sum I can live with.
After acquiring the charcoal, you want to talk to Combat Master Venyak to get a very important lesson in sword fighting. He is pretty slow to move over to the training grounds though, so feel free to talk to him before initiating the conversation with the charcoal burner. Now, the fighting tutorial itself is fairly short and self-explanatory, however, it can be exploited for a little extra XP. Once you're prompted to chain your attacks, simply hit the combat master with single unchained strikes instead. Just leave a bit of time between your hits to avoid chaining them together. He will allow you to hit him like this for a good 3 minutes, which should result in level ups for your strength, sword and warfare skills. For strength, the first level up even earns you a perk point, but we don't want to spend it just yet, instead we'll keep it for later. Now at this point, we are pretty much done with everything there is to do in Skalitz. One final thing I recommend is playing a game of Farkle with this fella by the marketplace. If you want to make sure to profit, drop a save and bet the maximum amount. He shouldn't be too difficult to beat, as he doesn't have any special dice and the CPU tends to get a bit greedy at times.
Oh no!
The rules are explained in-game and in quite some detail too, so I won't go over them here. Strategically, you'll want to score with at least 3 dice per round, but play it safe. 200 to 300 points per round are perfectly fine early on until you meet stronger opponents. What you do next is pretty much personal preference. If you're up for a bit more stealing, the local trader is a good target, but make sure to save beforehand. To set you up for success, head in, go through to the back room, open the door on the left and head back out. That door was previously locked from the outside, but not anymore. So use it to head back inside, sneak up the stairs and find 2 locked chests in the room, one easy, one hard, but both can be picked even with a lockpicking skill of only 2. This is perhaps an important note. A lock's difficulty rating does not directly translate into a fixed skill level requirement. Some hard locks like this can be picked early, others need a higher skill, so it's always worth checking. The easy one just has a few groschen in it. The hard one, meanwhile, contains the trader's entire inventory, including a valuable kilted jacket, 3 more Savior Schnapps, some healing items and also some charcoal, so technically you don't even need to purchase it. Your father will use the stolen stuff just as well. The next room upstairs has 3 chests, one easy with a bit more money in it, and 2 harder ones. The hard one can be picked at lockpicking level 4, the very hard one will likely remain inaccessible. Speaking of which, should you reach level 3 in Skalitz, pick the lasting lockpicks perk to make your picks more durable, and thus able to withstand more wiggling on those hard and very hard locks you'll encounter down the line. Additionally, I recommend saving at least 1 lockpick for later, the rest can be freely used. There is one more house that might be worth looting, but this one's risky. It's this one, at the far end of the main market street, to the left of the gate. The front door has an easy lock, but is also often in view of guards or villagers. There's another easy lock door to the left, and behind it a hard locked chest that can be opened with only level 2 in lockpicking. This chest contains a few valuable crafting kits and some weapons, including a short sword that might be worth taking. Now, apart from the ones I already mentioned, there aren't really any further lockpicking spots in Skalitz that I would consider to be worthwhile. The remaining houses are well overlooked by guards and villagers or have people inside of them, making them very risky targets with comparatively low rewards. So what else is there to do? Well, you could sell some of your stuff, the legally acquired at least, to the traders in the marketplace, or you could pick and also trade some more herbs. Getting to level 10 in the Herbalism skill would allow you to select the Leg Day perk, which increases your strength every time you pick herbs, but you can also leave that for later. After all, we have spent quite some time in Skalitz already. If you're going for all achievements, one thing you definitely want to do at this point is to drop a save, or use one you made earlier, and get yourself arrested to unlock the Firestarter achievement, which you would otherwise miss. Spoiler alert, going to jail in Skalitz will in fact result in your death, so it can also be used to unlock the Kingdom Did Not Come achievement if you're playing in hardcore mode. One thing you should not do, in my opinion, is spend your groschen to purchase any additional Savior Schnapps, unless you really like to save scum or want to play things extremely risky and commit lots of crimes early on. The ones you find should suffice. Following this guide, you'll end up with at least 10 of them, and keep in mind that sleeping in a bed also saves your game. Finally, yes, you could theoretically also rob and murder pretty much the entire village, but we're trying to establish a somewhat realistic role-playing basis here, and we also don't want to spend the first 2 hours in Skalitz just taking out everyone. So eventually you'll run out of things to do, so head to the tavern and speak to Bianca. Once asked about the ale for your father, she also hands you 5 more Savior Schnapps for free, and with that you can return to the forge, hand everything over and wrap up the Skalitz Prologue. While you're prompted to grab the nails for Teresa, make sure to leave absolutely everything you don't need in the chest in your home, put on the lightest clothing items you can find, aim for a total carried weight of under 15, grab 2 or 3 marigold decoction healing potions, as well as a handful of food that does not raise tiredness. Bread, apples, vegetables, and dried stuff is ideal, and then give Teresa the nails from your chest to unlock the Blacksmith's Son achievement and to trigger a lengthy cutscene. And there you have it. By the end of the Skalitz Prologue, you are now set up with solid clothing, even if you're not taking it with you just yet, a healthy supply of Savior Schnapps to make saves whenever you need to, somewhere between 100 to 200 Groschen, some spare carrying capacity for more shenanigans in the future, and a few handy perks that will give you a head start for the road ahead. Of course, this only wraps up part 1 of our Kingdom Come Deliverance Getting Started guide. This video is part of what will be a short mini-series, a new format I'm trying out. Originally, I planned to make this one long video, so 60 to 90 minutes, but that would have taken until the end of the month to finish. Instead, I will now release it in parts, and once the series is complete, I might combine them into one comprehensive guide for those who prefer having everything in one place. So I hope you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up if you did, and also feel free to leave a comment with any additional tips and tricks for the opening chapter in Skalitz you might have. And if you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, you can go ahead and subscribe, become a channel member, or check out the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.